We go forever and ever, yeah. You know that I'm much better, yeah. You wish that you can do better, no, I won't let up, We go forever and ever, yeah. I go and create the pressure, yeah. You wish that you can do better, You wish that you can do better, yeah. Ooh. We go forever and ever. We go forever and ever.
Welcome everyone to Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Reardon and I'll be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about life coaching. We're going to be talking about New Year's resolutions, and we're going to be talking about how we can make change in our life. And today I'm not going to be doing it alone. I'm going to be bringing on a guest, Kristina Sheppard, who's going to be helping us understand the process of life coaching and her specialty in mother wound healing. For me, coaching is such a personal process. For me, when I'm working with one of my coaches or my mentors, I can't tell you how invaluable that time is with me, because I become so much more motivated after that session. I go, okay, I'm going to conquer the world. And though it might not be the world that kind of like taking over like Hitler or something like that, I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to basically fulfill my mission in life, fulfill my purpose, because here at Reverend Concepts, we have a goal, we have a mission. And that is to basically eradicate the idea of limiting beliefs. There's nothing in your life that you can do. Now, you might think that you can't do it, or you might think that is impossible because it hasn't been done yet. But just because it hasn't been done doesn't mean it can't be done. It just means someone hasn't done it yet. Similar to how flying in the sky at one point was thought as something that would never happen until someone made the first airplane, until someone made the first helicopter, until someone made a jetpack. As we go, technology is going to keep on growing and evolving. And guess what? Our life changes too. There's a time when we had to ask for directions or buy a map, and now we have a smartphone that can do all that for us. You want to travel anywhere in the world, you can have maps, or you can have satellite views on your phone or on a device that can help you navigate to where you want to be. Times have changed, but life in general is basically much the same. What do people want? People want to be comfortable. They want to be happy. They want maybe a lot of money. Maybe they want a nice car or a fast car. They want maybe a nice house, a big house. Maybe they want something simple, maybe just a house in the woods with a dog or a cat. And there's nothing wrong with how we choose to live life. The issue with life, though, is many people, they give themselves a goal, a mission, a task, and they say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to make sure I make the change in my life, but there's no action. How can we have more action in our life? And for many people, they have to figure that out for themselves because they can't hold accountability in their own life. So they need someone to do that. And that's what a coach does. That's what a mentor can do for you. Someone who's going to be there guiding you, facilitating your progress, your goals, and then giving you the results that you're looking for. We all should have a coach. Everyone should have a coach. Even a coach should have a coach because they're so powerful. And for many people, they're always looking for how can they get ahead? How can they make progress? Getting a coach is not a magic pill that's going to make you automatically amazing. You have to put in the work too. Because if I say, okay, you want mindset coaching on fitness and health, and I say, okay, well, in order to be in a healthy state of mind, you have to figure out your diet, right? So we figure out all the bad things that you're eating, and we ask, why am I eating these bad things? You might say that you're depressed. I say, okay, well, why are we depressed, right? We're going down that rabbit hole. And we figure out the reason why we're depressed is because we're not happy in our job, or we're not happy in our relationship. So we start to do the work to fix that, to remedy the situation, to remedy the problem. From there, then we can focus on, okay, what should we eat? Because if I just tell you what to eat and you say, well, I'm going to eat salads and I'm just going to eat some eggs and be on keto and I'm going to fast and do intermittent fasting, you might have results. But if you have an underlying problem, then that's going to be a recurring thing. Because if you don't have me on your back or on your tail saying, hey, like, what's going on? You are not going to remain accountable, right? You have that habit of doing the negative things because of a situation that you have in your life. And sometimes we have to look at our life, maybe even going back to childhood, figuring out who we were as children. How do we grow up? And then we have to look at our life and then look at our life today. Do we have the same life or do we have a different life? Is our life better or is our life worse? And if your life is worse, I don't want you to dismay. I don't want you to worry, because in today's episode, we're going to be talking about how we can figure out our life with a life coach. How can we make our life better? How can we make some changes? How can we heal from the wounds that we had from childhood? I'm going to be bringing on my guest, Kristina Sheppard. She's a certified life coach. And the conversation, again, that we had is going to be very real. So when you're listening to this conversation, you're going to be able to insert your own life and you're going to be able to insert your own situation. And one of the things you have to figure out today is if you want to make the change today. So let's get into the episode with Kristina and myself. Welcome, Kristina and Sheppard, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
Hi, Michael. Thank you very much. I'm doing really well. Excited to be here.
Of course, and I'm glad to have you on because we're going to be talking about life coaching, and this is the perfect time to be talking about it because right now a lot of people are going to be stepping into this new year, and they're going to have a lot of New Year's resolutions, they're going to have a lot of goals, and basically a lot of commitments that they're going to be giving themselves. But in reality, how long do New Year's resolutions last? And we're going to be talking about that all today. But before I go in and dive into the conversation, please tell the audience who you are and how you help them.
Sure. So, hi, everyone. I'm Kristina Sheppard, certified life coach and coach supervisor. I've been doing this professionally for almost 4 years now. And before that, I've been working in banking for almost a decade, which was an exciting career, but at some point just didn't feel like it was my path anymore. I'm also a mom, and I'm currently pregnant with my second one. So just in case if I'm short of breath, excuse it. And I'm here to serve your audience and answer all the juicy questions about New Year resolutions and otherwise. And I think what's worth mentioning as well is that my specialism in life coaching is quite unique. So I do like general life coaching and support my clients achieving their goals and overcoming some hurdles and meeting their inner demons and mindset challenges. But the specialism in something that's very close to my heart is the topic of mother wound healing. And so this is something that is basically my life's work, and I enjoy doing it and helping other women to overcome the consequences of challenging and difficult relationship that they had with their mothers.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and we're going to definitely bring that up. I always like to go from the beginning when I talk to a life coach because there's always a journey involved. For me, when I began my career, or basically from after being in college, I was a teacher. So I was not just a teacher in college because I did accounting. So similar to how you were in money making, in banking, I was in accounting. And it's actually a common trend. I find it more often that a life coach has a very logistic, analytical mind, and they're very good with numbers. So we can see many different things because one of the key skills that is required from a life coach is to see the cause and effect. We look at your life and we say, okay, well, this is why this is happening, right? These habits are causing this. If you don't have that ability, it's very difficult for someone to help you because you have to know what's stopping you. What are the obstacles, as you said? What is the block, the mindset that you have, the demon that is stopping you from being the hero? It's always a journey I find from someone. Just a little bit about me. Grew up, I guess you could say, lower middle class, and I went to private schools growing up, but my mom had to work, 2 to 3 jobs for me to get there, put me through school, and I was very sheltered in a sense because I grew up in the hood, basically. From there, I was trying to figure out, okay, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And it's very easy to look at your environment and to mold into your environment. But I saw my environment, and so was perception there. So I saw what was happening. I said, I don't want this for my life. So I was able to see that. So the cause and effect again. And then, just kind of fast forward a lot. Now, a teacher going into school teaching, and I saw the limiting beliefs that were happening in the children, where oftentimes parents or teachers, they would say that someone can't do something, they can't be something. And to crush a child's dreams, I mean, what type of monster are you, number one? They can do something that we can't do. If we look at today, just at technology, a 4-year-old can operate an iPad better than I can. And that is because their brain is acclimated for that. That's their environment. How they're growing up is different than how we grew up. So we can't look at someone and say, oh, you can't do this or it can't be done. There's nothing impossible. It just hasn't been done yet. So I kind of wanted to get your backstory on how you grew up and then how you kind of fell into the role of life coaching.
Oh my God. Well, I loved hearing your story, by the way. And just to sort of follow up from this, you are absolutely right. We are the product to a certain extent, to largely, of our environment. And what an empowering moment to have that inner decision. I don't even know how old you were, but you were like, I don't want this for myself. And that's like such a powerful moment when you have that inner decision. About me, I was born in USSR. When I was born, it was still USSR. I'm coming from the family that didn't have very much. My mom was very busy working. I was very close to my dad, though, so I had a very loving relationship with my father and grew up being a tomboy, of course. I think the key element of my story is that I felt like I became my mom's counselor when I was 6 years old, because there was something in the family dynamic that we were struggling with money as well, and just political claimants that was happening in the country. And I remember how she was finding comfort in telling me about this when I was 6 years old. And somehow I was able to be that comforting space for her. And this is the beginning of my story as a parentified child. Parentified child is someone who begins to take care of their carer instead of how it should be being cared for. Long story short, as a good girl, that good girl is something that is also part of my story, decided to go to university and study economics because this is something that my mother wanted for me. And I was like, great, I'll do that. And she'll love me. And I was earning love through that. And then I started my career in banking, which I've been in banking for almost 10 years. And I must say, it's been quite a successful career. I've progressed really well. I had learned a lot and I met fantastic people there. Some of them are still very close friends of mine, but I had always felt that I just didn't belong there. It wasn't my path. And so a very significant part of my story was almost like rejecting my mother's choice for me and say, I can't continue earning your love and your respect in this way. I'm either not earning it at all, but I need to do something for myself. And I actually need to earn my own love and my own respect. And this is where a big pivot, it was such a closure and a new chapter has begun. And I requalified to become a life coach. I actually did it during my first maternity leave. And after I requalified, I didn't go back to my banking role, which was a scary leap of faith, but such an amazing decision. And since then, I've been doing coaching and I've been feeling so much more fulfilled and happy in my life.
Amazing that at age 6 that you're able to, be that caregiver for your mom, because I often tell parents that we shouldn't give children adult problems because it just makes them move a different way, makes them think a different way. It's not that it's a bad thing. It's just that allow a kid to be a kid because they're only going to be a kid once. And I remember when I was a kid, I wanted nothing more than to be an adult. I wanted to drive everywhere. I wanted to buy all the video games I wanted to buy. I'm a kid, right? I don't know what an adult is really. But what I knew is I was limited as a kid. So I was thinking adulthood was going to be this. And then adulthood, I have all these responsibilities. And then now I'm looking at childhood and I'm like, well, I had it good where there was not as many responsibilities. But I actually like responsibilities. But for many people, they are rushing life. Parents, especially, they're rushing for their kids to get out of diapers. And so they can take care of themselves and they can pour their own cereal and milk. But in the beginning, when we pay attention, those moments really make a life. The work that we do, we really look at life. One of the things you said you do is you do motherhood healing. For my mom, we had a similar situation where I was doing business finance accounting and my mom was very proud of me. She was excited. When I told her, I said, I'm going to be changing careers and going to teaching, the look on her face or maybe the tone in her voice was like, what? And I was like, yep, I'm doing it. And she knew she couldn't control me and she knew it was my life. So she kind of said, okay. And it took her probably like 2 or 3 years for her to say, that's what he wants to do. That's fine. And then I taught for several years. And then when I left, I went to coaching. And it was a scary leap of faith because you don't know what's on the other side. You could be successful. You cannot be successful. What makes a good coach? And that's kind of like what I want to do before we go into the motherhood healing aspect. What makes a good coach?
Oh, I love that question. So I'm also a coach supervisor, as I briefly mentioned before. So I'm actually supporting other coaches in becoming competent, confident, and masterful in their craft. I believe that reflective practice is the secret sauce of all masterful coaches. We all heard the concept that if you do something for 10,000 hours, you'll become masterful at something. However, great concept, slightly incomplete. Here's what I'm going to add to make it complete. It's important to reflect after every single hour that you do. So you coach your client and then you pause and you think about that session and you think about the things that you sensed or maybe thought of, but perhaps didn't offer or perhaps parked. And then you start reflecting on it. And I always recommend to reflect on like 3 things, like what could I have done differently? What could I have done better? And what is it that I was thinking of doing, but for some reason didn't? Why did I hold back? And just reflect after every single session and start playing in your coaching as well so that you do 10,000 hours and you don't do the same hour, but just 10,000 times. So reflective practice, I believe, is the secret ingredient, and just commitment to your craft and to your mastery and being willing to learn more, being genuinely interested in your clients rather than using some rinse and repeat coaching techniques that you learned like a few years ago, not you, but someone learned like a few years ago in their very first coach training. I would say that makes a good coach, someone who's really interested in helping others and committed to the craft.
I was still in college at this time. I was a swim coach and I knew how to swim. Being a swim coach should be easy, right? I could just teach the kids how to swim because I know how to swim. So I would make them swim. But I realized that swimming is not just about making someone swim, right? It's looking at the person, because I was only looking at the job. I was like, oh, I'm a swim coach. I have to teach them how to swim. I'm a life coach. I have to teach them about life. But in reality, what I had to do, and it took me maybe 3 to 6 months, I believe, for me to realize this. And I had a great boss at the time, and he was a great mentor for me. And he really helped me understand the difference between what makes a good instructor, what makes a bad instructor. And what makes a good instructor is that you don't look at the client or the child or whoever you're teaching as just someone that you're just trying to go through. Meaning, all right, I have 30 minutes with you, then I have 30 minutes with the next person. You look at the person, right? Who are they? What do they like? And you really learn about the person. And one of the things you also look at is you look at the person if they're tired, if they're excited. You look deeper, more so than just what's on the outside, because people are very tricky. They will say, oh, everything is fine. I might say, hey, Kristina, how are you doing today? You might say, oh, I'm doing well, but really you could be going through some hard times and some difficulties. You can see that in a person. You can see when they say, I'm doing well, I'm doing good, and you can really tell if it's true or not. Sometimes I'm working with someone and they might say, hey, Michael, how are you doing? And I go, what's wrong? I automatically know, like, tell me what's wrong. So I remember I had a client. He was going through some stuff. We had basically our agenda that we were working on. What had happened was I had called him for our session and I said, hey, how you doing? He goes, his tone in the voice was like, I'm doing okay. Right. So I'm like, just, tell me what's going on. Let's unpack everything. I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't learn how to pay attention to the person. Looking at the person as a simple client is a huge downfall for a coach, because then they really can't truly help that person. What's on the inside of that person? What is this person truly trying to tell you? And for me, I like to call my coaching, I'm trying to find out all the things you're not telling me, because you're going to be saying everything is good and you're going to be telling me all the good things, but I'm looking for what is really happening, because we all have blind spots in our life. And sometimes we need someone to make us aware of those blind spots.
100%. And it reminds me of a couple of principles that, again, I embody, and they're part of my coaching philosophy as well. Something that you said, coach the person, not the problem. So more of a holistic approach. And the second one is trust your clients, but don't believe them. And that sounds a little bit, ooh, how do I do that? How do I balance those two things? The truth, the reality is that our clients are telling us the stories that are familiar to them. Very often, automatically and habitually, they tell us the things that are just comforting to them and the things that they tell others as well. It's important for us, as you said, going deeper and go underneath the surface. What is actually going on here? I might not believe your story straight away, but that's not because I want to expose you or something, but I trust that there is something deeper and you can develop that self-awareness and hopefully rapport in a coaching relationship to open up so that we can work with it. You can let me in and we can actually do some juicy work together.
And one of the things I tell people sometimes is that if you tell yourself a lie long enough, it becomes your truth. So you might have limits in your life. You might have insecurities, and you might say, oh, I'm not a good speaker. I'm not a good husband, or I'm not a good wife, or I'm not a good son or daughter, right? So we give ourselves these beliefs, and belief is very powerful. You can make your whole life changed or turned around with a simple belief. I always tell people to look at the positive. Now, of course, our brain is naturally negative, so we have to kind of move with the brain. It's kind of like a push and pull. But if we tell ourselves things that are more positive and more uplifting, imagine how our life changes. Right now, a lot of people are very negative in the way of thinking. So one of the things I do with my mindset coaching is I help people be more positive. And we look at the positive, and we also look at the negative too, because that's part of life. It's like the yin and the yang, the good and the bad. And if you had a wonderful life right now, let's say you grew up and you had an affluent family, you were higher, upper class, and you had all the gold and all the riches in the world, and you had all the sweets in your pantry, and you can go to them anytime you wanted. But in reality, that wasn't our reality. So we had a different upbringing, right? So we can see the bad. And then now that we're older, we can see the good. We can see the progress that we made. And I think sometimes people are on this journey in life that they only look at what's ahead and rather than turning around and seeing how far they have come. For me, like just coming up, season 6 of Motivation and Emotion is coming out. What I do at every end of the season is I pay attention. I go, wow, I did 24 episodes of a season. That's a lot of work, number one. But number two, I'm on season 5, now season 6. So I see the progress where on season 1, when I started off, I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know about audio and video and B-roll. Like, what is this is new to me. And in life, there's going to be many new things, and we have to be open to learning, and we have to be open to making some changes.
I agree with you. And what you just said about like looking back and recognizing the progress, it's such a humbling experience as well, and so often dismissed. People just don't think that this is something extremely valuable. But when a coach is there to hold that energy that I want to invite you into that space and actually raise your awareness, look at how far you've come. And notice, because here's where things like discounting might come up and, oh, see how you treat your own progress. Where is this coming from? And very often they might share that, oh, someone in the past treated me that way, and now the person is replicating that behavior. And another thing that it reminds me of, I'm not sure whether you're familiar with the work of Carol Dweck, but she wrote a book about fixed and growth mindset, and like embodying and actually embracing the idea of growth mindset is such a massive and it's a beautiful tool to have, and especially work on it together in partnership with a coach, like a mindset coach like yourself, so that there is someone else helping you, holding on to that new awareness. Because don't you find that it's so difficult to hold on to the new level of awareness in isolation? We heal in relationships where we feel safe, seen, understood, and we need someone to support us as we are developing that habit, that new way of being, where we can become more self-aware and notice our progress and pat ourselves on the back and say, oh, that's some pretty good damn work that I did there.
Yes, exactly. And essentially, we are facilitators. We are holding the space for them, as you said, and we're just making sure that we're guiding them into the place that they want to be. Our brain is going to lead us to 99 different places, and it's going to lead us on all these different paths. But guess what? We have to take control of our brain. We have to take control of our mind. That's what we do typically with clients is we say, all right, what's going on in your mind? Let's unpack it. What type of goals do you want? Let's get the results that you're looking for. That's the whole process of coaching, where we're figuring out what you want to accomplish. And then we are being that facilitator, making sure it happens, holding you accountable, and then being your biggest cheerleader. I think that's so important, because if someone can believe in you, you only need one person to believe in yourself. Because if someone believes in you, you can do it. And it doesn't have to be a coach. It could be yourself. But oftentimes, as people, we don't believe ourselves. As I said earlier, if we tell ourselves a lie long enough, it becomes a truth. So we might not believe that we can do something, but then you have someone who says, hey, do it, do it, do it. And you finally do it. Now we're just breaking down those walls that we built, and we're making progress. And the more progress we make is going to help you get to that life that you want, or the life that you're dreaming of. Because if you can believe it, you can achieve it. Napoleon Hill, right? That type of mentality. And it's very true. It's just that many people, they don't take the time to believe in themselves or to visualize what they want. They just kind of accept their circumstances, accept what happens to them. And I'm telling you that you can go after anything you want in life. You have to be basically committed to it, because if you just kind of give yourself a New Year's resolution right now, you say, okay, I want to do this, but you don't make any changes, you're just going to keep that habit next year, the year after. But if you have a coach, it's a little bit different, because number one, you're putting skin in the game, where you're investing in yourself. And many people are quick to invest in themselves when it comes to beauty products, pleasurable activities, outings, vacations, travel. But when it comes to personal development, that can bring so much more abundance in your life, people are all so wary. It's because change, that's the key factor. Change is very difficult for the brain, because in order to change, it takes a massive amount of energy. And I kind of wanted to get your opinion on change. Do you think it's easy for clients to make change, or do you think it's something that can take a long time?
Oh my God. I think it can even take a long time to decide to choose change. Even just that preliminary stage, that journey of, shall I do it? Shall I not? Because then you're invested, then you're committed, then you kind of need to do the work. So even just the moment of, shall I do it? Shall I not? Self-doubt, hesitation, going asking everyone, shall I do it? What shall I do? Shall I change careers? Shall I be with that guy? Shall I ask for that promotion? Just real life kind of things and events. It's not easy because, as you said, our brains being cray-cray sometimes, and they want us to stay in the familiar zone. And purposefully choosing to walk into the new experience and do something differently, doing something unfamiliar is scary, because that's like, okay, risk of danger. We don't know what's there and we don't know what's going to happen. It's kind of comfortable here, not really happy, but comfortable. And that becomes the substitute of happiness. Change is not easy, but it's the most rewarding thing you can do as long as it's aligned with your true values. And then again, this is why it's difficult to do in isolation. And this is why coaching, I think, is so powerful, is that because coach will be there to elicit the answers from within. Why do you want this? Why is this desire is even your desire? What would it help you with? And once you have it, what's going to change in your life? And very often when coaches ask those kind of questions in the very first few conversations, clients can often change their goal. They can say, actually, I only want this promotion because I want respect from my partner. Or perhaps I want more money so that I buy this car, so that I become more attractive for this woman that, I just really want to approach and invite for a date, but I feel insecure. There is always the hidden reason for wanting something. I believe the real journey begins when we get under the skin of the goals. What is the feeling? What need is it going to meet for you? And how would your life be different? There's one more thing I would like to add on the topic of change. And that's the fact that it's actually kind of like a secret formula that my mentor shared with me a few years ago. And she said, the client is definitely serious about the change when they're ready to invest those three things. The first thing is money. The second thing is their time. And the third thing is their it's effort/energy. Because very often we can throw money into something and don't show up. So we don't invest our time in it. Or we kind of show up, but we don't really put in the work, because change takes time, commitment, and effort. It's like intentionally doing something different so that the quality of your life changes. What do you think about that?
I love that quote or that saying, because it really helps people understand, am I ready to make change? Because if we look at those three steps or those three factors of change, we can say, okay, well, I'm ready to invest. Time for me, I just kind of wasted already. I'm on my smartphone. So most people say an hour with a coach is just an hour less on my phone. But then the effort part, the actionable steps, that is very difficult for people, because when they start that, the subconscious mind is going crazy. It's saying, hey, you need to stop this because you're using too much energy right now. And it's daunting, because if something's going to kill us, we need to make sure we have energy. That's our primitive brains talking right there, because it's trying to conserve energy. But we live in a very plush society, very safe society, where we don't have to worry about dangers. If something is wrong, we can call 911, or we can call the police or the fire department or the ambulance, and we can get help very quickly. Before, we didn't have that, but the brain has spent millions of years building itself up, and the hardwiring of our brain is outdated. So we need to rewire our brain, and effort. That's how we do it. And if we take the steps, we take the actions, then we can make the change. On the topic of change, I wanted to kind of go into your specialty of motherhood. Just recently, my wife gave birth to her first child and my first child, so our first child together. And it's a huge change. Thank you so much. It's a huge change for us. And I know how much time it takes to raise a child, because I was a teacher. I saw the parents. I knew how much involved a parent had to be, or someone had to be, a guardian figure, caregiver in a child's life. So when that happened, it kind of threw everything for a loop. For me, it's kind of like, okay, adjust my schedule. For her, adjust the schedule, adjust our life. Because now you have a little person that you always have to bring with you. So you got the carrier, you got the car seat in the car, and you always have to make sure, okay, is this person good? Are they cold? Are they hungry? Are they sleeping well, right? Is there anything wrong with their body? Because they're growing up so quick. Especially when they start moving, they're going to be basically a tornado walking around, because you never know what they're going to get into. So if you have house plants, you have to change your house around, because they're going to try to climb up the plant tower and they're going to break everything. So you have to keep them safe that way. And then also you have to keep your plants alive, because everyone loves oxygen. So when we look at the change for motherhood, I kind of wanted to dive into your specialty. I'm not a mother, I'm a father. It's going to be different, I'm sure, for how I view things and you view things. And I kind of wanted to get your perspective on motherhood healing.
So I would actually start by reframing. So it's not so much motherhood wound, it's mother wound. So you don't even have to be mother in order to experience that, or you don't have to be parent in order to experience that. But we all have had mothers, and it's our relationship with our mothers and the way it impacted our self-esteem and self-confidence and self-understanding that then manifests itself in our adult life. And then sometimes we can experience things like very strong inner critique. So we criticize ourselves and we paralyze ourselves so we don't pursue our dreams and desires. Perhaps we neglect our own needs. Perhaps we dismiss our intuition. Perhaps we don't trust ourselves, or we don't follow inner guidance, inner nudges that tell us, go there, speak to this person, explore this, research that. It's just coming back to this first relationship that you had in your life, through which you discovered yourself and understood who you are and who you come to be into this world. That can often create the ripple effect that can negatively impact the way you show up in your life and adult life. So I would start with that. And the bond between a child and a mother is such a sacred bond, and it's the beginning of everything. I love the works of Eric Berne. He's the founder of transactional analysis, and he said that we write our life script during the first 7-8 years. And life script is basically the combination of things that we observe around ourselves. And we'll learn about our life and what's available to us, what's possible for us, what are we good at, who are we, through the relationship with our, not just only mothers, by the way, but actually like key carers, so fathers as well. And then that life script can kick in later in life. Very often it's such an amazing exercise to ask our clients, well, that inner critique or that tendency to discount your achievements, where do you think it's coming from? And see whether your client might open the door and say, here's something that I observed, or here's something that happened when I was a kid. And then the work begins, the deeper work.
When I was asking the question, I'm thinking very much like a man. I'm thinking motherhood is the same thing as mother wound, because for me, mother, but it is very different, because to be a mother is automatic when you give birth, but to have the wounds from your mother is something that you don't really have control over, because they might not be in the best place right now, your mom. And, looking at your history, your mom, I'm sure she meant well, but then at the age of 6, you were being her facilitator. Again, that's very challenging for a kid to navigate through, because they are trying to learn how to be an adult. And if they're looking at an adult that doesn't know how to be an adult, then what do they have to build off of? I always say that from 0 to 7, the kid is going to be learning about their environment and the behaviors that are going to be appropriate for them to mimic. So if you're in a household where it's very abusive, the kid is going to learn, oh, well, this is normal. If you're in a household where it's very loving and everyone's caring, then this is normal. We learn from that young age. And I think it's very important to have a 2-parent household, because right now, especially here in the West, there's an epidemic of single parents. And it doesn't have to be just single mothers. It could be single fathers too. They miss that aspect of that love and care from a woman, and they miss that aspect from the protector type of mindset of a man and the purpose of a man. When you have both of those put together, you have a complete package. But when you don't have that complete package, that kid has to go out and find what it is to be a man or to be a woman. I always tell young men, I said, if you don't have a positive mentor in your life, find one, because you will at some point in your life look for a man, whether it be positive or negative, and you're going to mimic him. So if you're in a negative environment, you're going to mimic the negative men in that environment. And the same thing for women. Many women right now looking at celebrities. So we have our Kim Kardashian, we have, our Cardi B's and things like that. So a lot of these younger women are looking up to these mothers, basically, and they're seeing how they act. And they are like, oh, well, if they do it, I can do it. So they are basically learning bad habits because they are living in a different life, but they're saying they can have the same actions and the same results. But in reality, we really have to look at our environment and our behavior and then look around to see if you want that. And you said early on that I was able to see that I don't want this in my life. We have to ask ourselves that questions. And it's very difficult for a child to ask themselves that question. Do I want this in my life? Many kids just kind of move along, right? And they cry when they can't get something, and they're very happy when they get something, and they like their ice creams and their cakes and stuff like that. So kids are simple in the sense, but it takes more to develop their brain than they are led to believe. They are moving so quickly. And I'm not just saying moving and, like in your house and breaking everything. I'm talking about in life. They're growing so quickly. One day you're going to be talking to them, and the next day you're going to be talking to them about philosophy or the meaning of life, where you're going to see them graduate. They grow up so quickly, not just physically, but mentally too. And we have to be there as parents As you said, we all have mothers. Your mother's going to be a representation of who you become.
Yes, 100%. I agree with everything you've just said. And you touched on so many potent topics. I struggle to pick which one to grab and run with.
Let's unpack it.
Let's unpack it. Childhood patterns is something that came up for me, and the power of familiarity, the subconscious patterns that develop during the first 7-8 years, as we mentioned, and moving beyond normal. Because as you said, whatever we observe becomes normal. And this is how a childhood pattern is formed. If there is abuse in the family, if mother doesn't take care of herself, if she neglects her own needs, and she's quite a sacrificial mother, then I, as a girl, observing her during the age between 3 and 5, because this is where we begin to identify our gender, and we realize I'm a girl, just like my mother, she's a girl as well, she's an adult, so when I grow up, I'm going to be like her. And I think this is the moment when we sometimes can make that inner decision. I either follow her path and I'm going to be like her, or I'm going to say, I don't want to be like her, and then I'm going to still do things differently, but not because they come from who I am, but because they're the opposite of what my mom is. And the beauty of our self-evolution and basically our challenge and our quest, and something that we need to do in our adult life in order to mature and step into our, I know it's such a hype word, but authenticity, but actually be true to ourselves and fulfill our potential and stepping into our true self, is to realize, what do I actually want? Regardless, like whatever I like about the environment that I grew up in or didn't like, doesn't matter. What I want from my heart, in my core, what do I desire? Despite of all of those things, this is this sweet spot. This is where the journey begins. But you're absolutely right. Like that story and that development, that environment the paradigm that we were born into, it creates sometimes those gaps that it's our job to then take responsibility and fulfill so that we can become whole again.
I know many people, they're always confused. Like, should I get a therapist or should I get a life coach? Because therapists are going to really dig deep into your past, and life coach, we understand your past. We say, okay, this is where you were. And we say, okay, now we have a good understanding of where you came from. So let's start to make some changes. A therapist really dives deep into that. How did that make you feel? But they don't really give you actionable steps. It's almost like reliving it and then healing through that process. So some people never graduate from therapy, but I can tell you more people graduate from life coaching and coaching in general, because they're making progress versus living in a moment where we don't want you to live in that moment forever. We want you to understand that moment, heal from that moment, and then grow because of that moment. And for many people, they think, okay, well, I'm just going to stay in the moment because that's what I need to do. I need to focus on the bad. And the brain loves to focus on the bad. Let's say you got into a car accident. You're going to be thinking about that car accident for at least 3 days. So now you have that negativity, because negativities are so much more powerful. When's the last time you paid attention to happiness? Most people can't even recognize that they pay attention to negativity more than they do happiness. So when I look back at my childhood, I can look back and when the furnace was always broken, we didn't have electricity, like the house was always ransacked because, we were robbed and they would steal our TVs and ruin all of our furniture. I can look back at that and I can say, you know what? My life was so bad, I'm a victim. Or I can say, my mom was a hard worker. My dad was a hard worker. They gave me the best life they can. And they allowed me to be in a better position than they were. So they passed the baton to me so I can finish the race for them. Now they can live the life that they wanted because they gave me the life that they knew I should have. And from there, I can see my parents and the sacrifices that they made, and then I can level up, right? So it's kind of like the generational curse. Do we allow it to continue, or do we say, you know what, this is no longer going to be a curse in my family? It's a huge task to take. It's a huge burden to commit to because it's a lot of work and you're going through so much sacrifice. You're going through so much hardship, and it's a lonely process because you're basically doing it yourself. And yeah, you might have siblings, but they might not have that mindset. They might not have that mindset of saying, well, I want to change my whole entire family. They might say, well, how can I make my life the best life? And that's where most people are. How can I make my life the best life? And right now, many people have their New Year's resolutions. And I'm almost guaranteeing that over 80% of people are worried about how can I make my life better?
100%. I believe January is such a magical time. It's probably one of the most magical months in the whole year. Well, I might be a little bit biased because I was born in January. So you're so right. Again, I just resonate really much with everything that you're saying, especially with mother wounds. I'm kind of like touching this a little bit here. It's really healing to look back and, just as you said, make a decision not to view your story through the lens of I'm a victim, but actually view your parents as human beings, not just mom and dad who owed you something, who had to do something for you, who were responsible for you as a child to have everything or like give you the best life and experience ever. You begin to view them as whole human beings with their past, with their histories. What were their relationships with their parents? How did they learn how to love their kids? How did they learn how to do hard things and work and take responsibility? And there was probably a very good reason why, they were hardworking. They were maybe sometimes a little bit less present than in other times. There's always an explanation, especially like when you view your parents as a whole human being with their past, with their history, rather than just a role and a function or fulfilling your needs and emotions as a kid. It's a part of our healing journey as adults that is so crucial and so important to have as you evolve and as you step into this role. And we actually learn how to be a little bit more self-compassionate as parents ourselves when we become parents. You're probably already like really in it right now, and you're discovering for yourself that, my goodness, like it requires a lot of compassion, a lot of patience. I gotta give myself and my wife a lot of grace, and we might F up, or we might not do things perfectly perfect, but we're committed to this child and committed to being at our best for this precious little baby that chose us as their parents.
And I would say that for me, when I was a teacher, I probably had more patience for the kids that I was teaching than I do my own child, because it's a different type of patience where you are, hearing this kid cry and cry and cry. It's like, what's going on? Right. And then like they want to go to sleep, then go to sleep. Right. It's just that they go through that regression phase where they are afraid to close their eyes because they're going to miss something. In our life, I think we kind of carry that on to adulthood. We are afraid we're going to miss something. It's called FOMO, fear of missing out. We are always looking at the things that, oh, well, I need this, or, this is not in my life. We look at everything we don't have, looking at the things that we want. But if we take a step back and we look at the things we do have, right, being grateful for a moment, it can make us so much more active in our goals and our results, because now we're saying, oh, well, we have this, right, versus, oh, I have to get this, because getting something is typically more energy than you already have something. So if you can see the things you have this coming year, especially this coming year, you're going to see the things that you are going to be able to work with rather than the things that you have to attain. Because if you go that way first, instead of, oh, I have to get this and get this, you're going to come to a point at some point, typically is around March or April, you're going to say, this is a lot of work. I'm just going to sit where I am because, that's what people do, right? It's their comfort zone because it's easy to remain comfortable. And the conversation that you and I had today was very brief, but life is not brief. And there's so much to it, more than this conversation. Before we go, I definitely want to get any final words from you. And then please tell the audience where they can find you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Well, I believe we could go for hours. It's such a deep topic and so many juicy things that we can pick on and explore. I think what I'm going to choose for my final words is, it takes a lot of courage to pursue your dreams and say yes to your dreams, because it's probably the most vulnerable thing that you will ever do. So pick one fantastic big dream that you are even scared of talking to other people or like saying out loud, like writing a novel, starting your business, getting really healthier. Think about that dream and just, what would it mean if I said yes to this? What would it mean for me? And what if I say no to this now? And when I'm older, when I'm 80 years old, and I look back and I realize that I didn't use the chance, I didn't use the opportunity, how would I feel? I think we're just so afraid of pursuing our dreams, not so much because we think we fail, but also, what if we succeed? How would our life change then? The first thing that I always recommend is, we say this because we're coaches. I have a coach of my own because I really believed in this work. And my coach helps me to move forward. And I realized that, yes, we need that. We need someone else. It's very hard to hold on to your desires and to your self-belief or new level of self-awareness in isolation. And we're not islands. We're not supposed to do this hard work alone. So get support. Don't be afraid to ask for help. A lot of people have problem with that. That's absolutely fine. We don't have to be like all powerful, almighty human beings. It's unattainable, and no one's going to praise us for it. It's important to ask for help, and people in general love helping others as well. This is how we connect and unite. The best way to get in touch with me and connect with me on a more personal level would be my Instagram at the moment, because my website is still in the works. My Instagram handle is Become the Author of Your Life. And this is the name of my coaching practice, which helps people specifically with the idea that they feel like they're living someone else's life, and they want to step into the place where they're like, oh, inside out change. I know who I am, and they're finally getting this clarity and direction on who they are and what they want, and connect with that inner strength within to become the author of their lives. Check me out. Come say hi on Instagram, Become the Author of Your Life, and we can connect there.
And I will put that link in the description box below, and I'll find some more links for you because I know I can. I typically always find multiple links, whether it be an email, phone number, Instagram account, social media, Facebook. I mean, there's so many social medias that we can connect to, and then especially your website when it's ready, because I know it's a masterpiece in process. So we're definitely going to get that there whenever it comes out so people can easily check you out. I love the idea that sometimes we have to look at the conversation we have with ourselves. Do we say yes to certain things, or do we say no to certain things? And what does that bring for us in our life? And then to have a coach to really facilitate for us. Even I have a mentor and a coach, because I understand that it is powerful and that I have so many blind spots. And when I'm talking to someone, it only takes an hour. If I talk to my mentor, and I don't have to do it quite often, I can probably speak with him every 2 months. And it's so powerful. It gives me the fuel. It gives me the energy. It gives me the drive to push more than I would if I just kept doing things myself. I do have a great mindset, but just because my mindset is great, it doesn't mean that I can be great alone. If you wanted to build a city or an empire, you do that with people. You don't do it by yourself, because in your lifetime, you won't be able to accomplish that. I encourage you to find someone to support you like Kristina and really start to make changes in your life, because the change that you're seeking in your life, it begins with you. So thank you so much, Kristina, for coming on Coaching in Session. Great conversation today.
Loved it. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching the episode with Kristina, Sheppard, and myself. As you can see, the conversation was pragmatic. It was real. We were talking about our own personal life, and we were trying to figure out where we are and where we want to be. And it's a journey for us, even us coaches. It's a journey. We don't have all the answers. We don't have all the ideas of, okay, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to be successful. I've had more failures than probably the average person. And it's not that I'm bad at something. It's not that I'm not capable of achieving and being successful, because that's on the contrary. I am successful. I'm able to achieve great things. But the reason why I'm able to achieve great things is because I'm not afraid to fail. And even if there was a fear of failure, I'm going to experience it and I'm going to say, that's an interesting feeling. I'm paying attention to that failure, because people say no to me all the time. Whether it be clients, they say, I can't afford coaching right now. That's a no, basically. I say, not a problem. How I do the show and how I do my business is I put so much free content out there that you can make a change in your life. If you listen to all the episodes of Coaching in Session from episode 1 to episode 200 plus right now, you're going to find that you're making change in your life and your mind. Is it going to be easy? Can you commit to it? Maybe, maybe not. I don't necessarily know if you can. I know for me, when I was starting to make my shift to starting my business and to really changing my life and to heal from all the wounds and all the griefs and all the traumas that I had, I started to listen to life coaching podcasts. From there, or actually several life coaching podcasts and personal development podcasts, where from there, I said, okay, now I'm getting information. I started reading more books. I started writing. And then I said, you know what? Now I have enough to propel myself into a better mindset. How do I do that? I got a coach. And from there, I said, okay, now that I have a coach, what do I need to do? I want to start a business, right? I don't know anything about starting a business. My parents didn't start a business. What do I do about starting a business? We've always been workers. We always work for a paycheck. How do I start a business? Got a business coach. She made it very clear to me what I needed to do and how I needed to operate. For me, it was a lot of work because I was changing everything I was doing. I was figuring out, how can I be a different person? Because I had to evolve. I had to change. And for me, that change was scary. It was very uncertain. I didn't know if I would succeed. I didn't know if I would fail. And along the way, I failed and I failed and I failed, but I also succeeded, and I paid attention to those successes, and I learned from my failures. So in life, we're going to have an opportunity, especially now. We have January. Kristina said this is a magical month, and happy birthday to her, of course. It is a magical month indeed, because everyone around us is focused on progress, on growth, on attainment. And the thing about when everyone is thinking about that pattern, guess what happens? It's almost like our heart and our brain is in synergy with the people around us. So we feel good in January, we feel good in February, and then things kind of taper off. But the onset of trauma, the onset of negative news is going to be enough to propel us into our destruction. So we have to figure out, how can we avoid that? How can we be successful this year? How can we make the changes that we're looking for? And the way we do that is we have someone hold us accountable, have someone who can facilitate the space, who can look at our goals and to look at our blind spots and to see our actions and to listen to our words, because we can easily try to fool coach, but a good coach is going to know when there's some BS going on. And I know many clients that they come in and they're like, hey, I didn't do this. And I say, wow, no, let's figure out why you didn't do it. And they might say, oh, I didn't do it because I was busy with work. And I'm sure you were busy with work. I'm not saying that you're not. But do you want it, or do you kind of want it? Sometimes you have to really figure out, are you ready? And the things we talked about today about, are you willing to invest in yourself? Are you willing to invest the time? And then the effort, the energy. That's important. Because if you're not willing to put in the work, then it's going to be hard to make the change. So you have to ask yourself, are you ready for change? Are you ready to turn your whole life around? 2023 can be an amazing year for many people. You just have to understand that it is that year for you. And it's not that, oh, I'm going to make this year the best year yet, because we say that on January 1st, and then we follow through a couple months later. It's not about making this best year yet. It's about making sure every single day you make the best day yet. Because if you can make every single day the best day yet, by the end of the year, your year is going to be better than it was the previous year. And then if you are making sure every single day you're better, and you make progress. And even if you take a step back a day, maybe a week, heck, maybe even a month, understand that you did that and then figure out how you can get yourself ahead. And if you find that you're falling back over and over and over again, that's a sure sign that you need someone there. It's a sure sign that you need a coach. You're going to need someone to hold you accountable, someone who's going to help you along the way. In life, we are not meant to walk this journey alone, but many of us think that we have to. There's always help. There's always someone who can help guide you and support you. And whether it be Kristina or myself, we are there to support you. And we want to see you do good, and we want to see you strive and to be more in your life. But you have to make that commitment. You have to make that choice. So I want you to make that choice for the best year yet. And it begins a day at a time, and it begins with you. My name is Michael Reardon. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, you can email me coachinginsession@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, revenconcepts.com, check out all our free content, our blogs, our motivational videos, and then really get a good understanding of the changes that you can make this year. I will see everyone at the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone, take care.